It's 5:06 in the afternoon here on the day after Thanksgiving, November 23rd. And we have a special edition of Visual Radio. It's the 39th anniversary of the passing of Hal Hebb, the great musician Hal Hebb, older brother of Bobby Hebb. I did a little essay on that today, and I did a little essay on Hitchcock, the two Hitchcock movies, The Girl and the new one, Hitchcock. You can see them on tmrzoo.com. I am the chief film critic for TMR Zoo. And you can go to Sabotage Times in England. My Flight review is up, Flight, F-L-I-G-H-T. The views and opinions on Visual Radio Live and Visual Radio Studio are those of the host and his guests, not necessarily those of WinCam, Winchester Community Access and Media, its staff, its management, board of directors, members, and all our affiliate stations, Cambridge, Boston, Somerville, on and on and on. So, day after Thanksgiving, and let me call up our distinguished film critic.
Oh, Frank Stritto talking about movies.
Hey, Frank, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I am excellent. Hey, how was your Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving was fine. I make the mashed potatoes. My wife does everything else, but I insist on doing the mashed potatoes. And every year I experiment with a slightly different formula. So then, last couple of years it's been a success. But one year they were so damn salty nobody could eat them. But I just tell people that beforehand. This is a never tried before recipe.
Did your son send in tofu from Hawaii for a tofu Hawaiian turkey?
My son gets married in Hawaii, but he actually lives in New Orleans, so he should have sent me some crawfish or whatever, but he didn't. He didn't even call, so that's life.
Well, my friend had turkey, and I had swordfish.
Oh, God bless you.
You know, we went to a restaurant we went to last year, and they had the turkey, and then they had the swordfish, and I love swordfish.
Mm-hmm. And
I'm thinking, should I really have this on Thanksgiving? Oh, why not?
My grandfather always said when I ordered swordfish, I should do something to make sure it's not shark, because apparently most people can't tell the difference between shark and swordfish. And he did something with his fork. But this is like 50 years ago. He told me that. And at the time, I thought it was cooler to be eating a shark than a swordfish anyway.
You know, that's interesting, because I didn't think it tasted 100% swordfish.
Yeah, okay. Well, I don't know what to tell you. You're up in the land of great seafood. So am I. But we have different seafood. You have the North Atlantic. I have the Gulf. But supposedly, swordfish. I'm trying to remember what Grandpa did. If you kind of stroke it with your fork, the flakes fall off much easier than shark, where it's much more held together, much stronger.
Well, this felt a little held together, much stronger. It was delicious.
Mm-hmm.
But, you got me thinking now. It might have been shark.
Okay, it might have been. I don't know. Because Grandpa was in the Navy, but he came from Pennsylvania. So it's not like he was raised by the sea, western Pennsylvania. So he wasn't raised by the sea, but he was in the Navy. So how he knows these things, and if he knew what he was talking about, I don't know.
So, Frank, let's go back a little bit. Looper, you had brought up. I didn't get to see it.
Oh, okay.
And the theater it was at, Somerville Theater in Davis Square, it's now missing. So it came and went rather quickly.
It hung around in Houston here, but I don't know. The old days movies would open at fewer theaters and they'd be around a lot longer. Now they have a broad blanket distribution, and a lot of them are gone well within a month. 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and then after that they have to be doing some real good business to last. I was just, these theaters with multiple screens. The number 10 movie. We hear about the top 5 movie of the week. The number 10 movie will often be making under $1 million a week. So, they peter out fast, and then they disappear. So, well, you'll catch it later. It's worth seeing. It's not a great movie, but I enjoyed it. I think a man of your cunning will see some shortcomings in time travel, which is true in most movies where people are traveling back and forth in time. You can pick up a glitch. But I enjoyed it.
Well, I think time travel is very, very possible, because I don't believe Look, when we grew up, did you grow up in Texas?
No, I grew up in New Jersey.
You're in New Jersey, I'm in Massachusetts. We were all told that there was an Easter Bunny and a Santa Claus.
Okay.
And then we found out they were lying. Some of us thought that the world was flat until we went to geography class.
Okay.
We found the world was round.
Well, I never believed in the Easter Bunny, but I probably believed in Santa Claus too long. So, yeah, I guess on average, yeah. I guess.
Now, some scientists are saying the possibility that we're living in a virtual reality is 95%. They say that supercomputers are within our grasp within the next 50, 60 years that can create environments that you cannot tell from, reality or fiction or whatever. Or maybe it becomes the reality because you're immersed in it.
Okay.
So that we could be living in a virtual reality of some sort is a high probability at this point.
Well, I mean, in the end, all reality is virtual. It's all inside your head. So that's why crazy people seem to be living in a different, what we call crazy people. They may be seeing things better than we are. I don't know.
Well, Hitchcock saw things from perspectives that none of us
That's
would
right.
have imagined.
That is a good segue into your experiences. I haven't seen Hitchcock, so you saw it. Are you going to give us a little preview of what you thought?
Sure. You've got two guys out there as Hitchcock, Toby Jones and Anthony Hopkins.
Yes, it is. It's Toby Jones's fate to be to give great performances in the same year that some other actor gives the same performance as the same character. And I'm thinking of him as Capote, Truman Capote, in the movie Infamous, was released within months of
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Philip Seymour Hoffman's Capote. So, and this is my personal opinion. Philip Seymour Hoffman got the award. Capote was a much more praised and popular film, but I would take Infamous over it any day of the week. I love Infamous, whereas Capote I thought was okay. And now we have Toby Jones playing Alfred Hitchcock on HBO in The Girl, and he's doing that a matter of weeks before the movie Hitchcock is released with a much more famous actor, Anthony Hopkins, and I mean that's going to get much wider viewing. And so I mean that's his fate. If there's a great man to be played, get Toby Jones to play him, but he's going to come in second, no matter how good he is.
And the subject matter of Hitchcock is better than what The Girl was based on. The Girl was based on that fellow that wrote 3 books, scandalous books, even though he befriended Hitchcock towards the end of his life. Hitchcock befriended him.
Well, my advice to your listeners or viewers is, when you're reading a book about a famous person, you're often learning more about the author than you are about the famous person. I mean, you'll learn the dates and where were they when and what were they doing when. You'll learn that from the book, but what the author gives emphasis to and what really he finds fascinating in the life may tell you more about him than it does about the person he's writing about. So I'm aware of the works that you're referring to, and how true are they or not? I'm not an expert on his life, but they're kind of juicy.
Well, they're juicy in that respect, and then this has the making of Psycho by Stephen Rebell, I believe the guy's name is. And Rebell actually, according to Wikipedia, had some input in writing some of the script. You also have Alma Revell, Hitchcock, the wife. Helen Mirren does a wonderful job, a far more sympathetic version. I cited a great New York Times article which compared the two movies because of their focus on Alma Revell. So in that respect, I like that Alma is getting her due and Psycho is getting its due, and the fact that Hitchcock took the gamble. He put his own money up for Psycho. Like all great works of art that have been ignored by the money men, from Bobby Hebb's Sonny. I have firsthand experience knowing Bobby. He said 45 publishers turned down this huge number 25 all-time song. So he faced a lot of rejection before he actually got it published. Jack London, I cited in my review, had a stack of rejection letters, and his Call of the Wild is a classic. So Hitchcock, this great master, couldn't get the funding from Paramount. Blows my mind.
Okay. And I will just add to that Walt Disney leveraged himself to near bankruptcy. If Disneyland had not been a hit when it opened, he would have been in bad straits. He did all sorts of innovative things to finance the thing. He made one of the early strategic alliances with ABC, which is why Mickey Mouse Club was on ABC and not NBC or CBS, to get the money, get the backing for Disneyland, because everyone thought he was nuts. Who needs what is essentially a year-round, never-ending World's Fair? And of course, Disney, as the saying goes, laughed all the way to the bank.
To the point where they could buy Marvel Comics and Star Wars, two of the most iconic brands out there.
Yeah, but to give everyone who doesn't do that their due, the whoever they are, the producers, the publishers, the record makers, they're looking to make a buck, and the surest way to make a dollar in a business that is lacking certainty is to try to repeat the last success. And when something comes along that's too different from what's been done in the past, they get nervous, and a lot of guys are going to say, "Not my money," and the people that don't say that enough are often in the poorhouse, because in the end most ideas are bad ideas. so if you want to play the odds, you don't go with the new thing in town. The bad side of that is we're not going to advance on any fronts as a culture unless people take chances or do something that's never been done before. And so, those guys that succeed deserve all, hopefully they reap great rewards from it, and they deserve it because they took the risk.
And I don't agree with you that all ideas are bad ideas, because...
No, I said most... Listen, I think most art is bad, and I think most new ideas are bad.
Interesting.
Very few break through.
Well, what was interesting here in this movie, and I'm glad it brought it up, was that not only did Hitchcock finance it, he was a master of promotion. He had the instinct on how to promote a film. Paramount said, we're going to open it in 2 theaters, and so he made it a huge splash. And when you watch the film, you have to stand in awe of what Hitchcock did, not that it's Anthony Hopkins attempting to play Hitchcock. And what I bring up in my review is Gods and Monsters. You had the luxury of James Whale not being famous outside of the world of people like you and me, right? So James Whale was an unknown to the general public, known to collectors of monster movies. But Hitchcock is everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I'm going to make a statement which I think is true, but if I'm incorrect, one of your viewers will correct me. In 1960, there were 2 major film personalities who also had their own weekly TV series, and these are not major film personalities who were over the hill. These guys were still in their prime, but they also had TV series, and one of them was Walt Disney with The Wonderful World of Disney, and the other one was Alfred Hitchcock. And I don't think there's a third one on that list. So, personally, Alfred Hitchcock to me, as a boy growing up, was this kind of comical fat little man who made jokes I didn't quite understand, but I thought he was quite amusing. And I was kind of, I won't say shocked, but as I grew up and you realize that Alfred Hitchcock was somebody besides the guy that was on Alfred Hitchcock Presents, that he actually directed movies and all that. And he had this whole legend about him, appearing in his own movies, the film noirish, the black comedies and all that. That was all a side of him I never saw as a kid. His show began when I was 5 years old. And quite frankly, the stories didn't appeal to me because most of them were murder mysteries and you had to watch the plot and all that. And what 5-year-old wants to sit through that? But I always liked his introductions and his closings. And even though I didn't get the joke, I thought he was a very amusing guy to listen to. And meanwhile, what is he doing? He's making a movie like Psycho. Which in its day was shocking. Janet Leigh is not exactly nude in that movie, but she comes damn close to it. And the knife killings and all that was shocking at the time. And this guy has a weekly television series that's on early enough for a guy who's, me, I'm in my first decade, to watch it.
Well, he wanted to break the mold, and he did. And Psycho is so important as a movie. And I think it works better than The Birds, which came 3 years later.
Oh yeah, I think so. And Psycho, and actually I read an article about The Birds years ago, which I wish I could find, which analyzed the film and what's going on. It was a brilliant article, and it made you appreciate the film more. And I guess after that, Hitchcock was now, getting close to 70. He kind of lost it after that. I mean, Psycho was his last high point. He didn't come close to it, but another high point was The Birds. But after that, I think it kind of wound down for him.
Yeah, Marnie and Frenzy don't really, and Topaz, they don't really register with me.
Yeah, they don't. It's just not. I'm not getting the. Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not getting the joke. It's who is he playing to? So anyway, all hail the master. So listen, you have seen both Anthony Hopkins and Toby Jones's portrayals of Hitchcock. Whose do you like? Apart from the movie, apart from the subject, whose do you like better?
Well, having met the guy, as we discussed before, neither. Hopkins is a grade above Toby. Toby has a great voice, and he does the voice fine. The silly putty makeup really hurt him.
I think I agree. I thought he had the voice down pat. I thought from behind, and they were smart enough to film some scenes from behind when he's speaking. You could think you were listening to and looking out for Hitchcock. But when he turned around, the makeup didn't quite work, and what for me it was the eyes. The eyes were just not Alfred Hitchcock's. And I think Hopkins comes closer, but again, how can you capture the eyes of another person unless nature made you that way? They can put all the makeup on they want, but they can't really get the eyes unless they're there to begin with. So
and again with Gods and Monsters, Ian McKellen I thought gave a superb performance. And he wasn't clumsy in his sexual harassment of Brendan Fraser, where I think the Toby Jones thing's so clumsy, not well played, and you're dealing with a big name. They should have been far more sensitive.
Yeah, well, I would have liked more probing in The Girl as to why Hitchcock was acting the way he was. Okay, he was, not to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but he's basically giving the actress, Tippi Hedren is the real life actress, is the actress in the movie and the actress who was in The Birds. He's giving her a really, really hard time and making life very difficult for her. But you never got into why. There was no probing of that. He was just basically a dirty old man. And,
but I think there's something more than that. I think it's more than being an old lech, a lecherous old man. I think that he had some psychology, because this was his craft. So why would a master craftsman muck up the craft?
Yeah.
I think the manipulation and the harassment, maybe in his twisted mind, was a way of getting a better performance out of her. She was frightened of the...
Maybe, but the movie didn't go anywhere with that. That was
right.
That's for us to paste onto the movie. The movie didn't help us at all with that.
No.
So The Girl, I guess I gave it out of 10. I gave it a 6. There were some scenes I thought were well, but for me, the failure of The Girl was that the lead actress Sienna Miller, invoked none of the persona of Tippi Hedren. And Tippi Hedren, you can say whether you can argue how beautiful you think she is or whatever, but she radiated poise and class and style, And this actress was a bit too much down to earth for me. I couldn't really imagine when I watched The Birds. I can't really imagine Tippi Hedren being one of the girls. She's a kind of a part. She's got class, and I didn't think the actress in in The Girl captured that at all.
No, one of the great moments in The Birds is when they're in that little cafe and the townspeople accuse her of being like this Frankenstein. You brought the birds, or however it was phrased. And suddenly the villagers turn on a beautiful Tippi Hedren instead of Boris Karloff.
Yeah.
But I think The Birds, unlike Psycho, is a better movie to remake as almost a tribute to Hitchcock, because now with technology, and looking back at what he did, I think you could take The Birds and make a really scary contemporary movie.
Yeah, I agree, and I mean it's kind of trite to say you can't improve upon Psycho, but Psycho. I think Psycho had it more together. If I were a filmmaker, I'd be more daunted trying to remake Psycho than I would be trying to remake The Birds. Because The Birds, I could imagine being, in terms of what Hitchcock wanted, I guess Psycho turned out perfect. The Birds turned out well.
Yeah, some of the green screen stuff just really unnerves me today because you can see the birds aren't in the scene.
Yeah.
And it's just too precise. But
I must admit, the first time I saw The Birds, that never occurred to me.
no, same here, because we're watching it in the theater and we didn't know about green screen.
Yeah, and that happens to me often when I watch old movies. I see, the first time I watched that, I didn't realize that guy had a wig on, but it's so obvious. I can't ignore it.
But some films like King Kong, maybe Metropolis, stand the test of time, and you see the genius behind them. That they made good. Hey, the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper was made on what? A 1 4-track or 2 4-track machines. It's just impossible thinking of that now today with unlimited tracks. But they got it right. They mix it down, and then they go and do something else, and it comes out perfect. Maybe we have too much technology and they're spending too much time on the technology today than on the heart of the story. Tell the story and tell it well.
No, I largely agree with that. I think a lot of I hate to say something like this because you sound like an old fogey. Don't you think the old movies are better than the current movies? And I always say there was plenty of old movies that were rotten that nobody remembers today. We remember the good ones more than the rotten ones. But there was more, and they were better storytellers. The filmmakers of a past generation were better storytellers than the present ones are.
Well,
and there are people for whom special effects and technology can make a movie, and for me, they make a good movie better and a bad movie worse.
I think, having just met Robert Zemeckis, that the Flight movie is totally original. Will it go down as a Psycho or even a classic like Forrest Gump, which is not my favorite movie? Possibly not, but it is a good story. So there are some filmmakers out there, and he owes a lot to Hitchcock, as you probably know. So Zemeckis can't come out and hit it out of the park. But yeah, these are few and far between. Maybe The Matrix comes into mind as like, wow, that's really different.
Well, I mean, while we're on Flight, I saw Flight and I enjoyed it. The issue I took with the movie has nothing to do with the movie itself. It was with the way they promoted it. And I hope I'm not spoiling it for anybody. This is a movie basically about substance abuse.
Oh yeah.
Washington has terrible problems with alcohol and drugs. But when you saw the coming attractions, it was more like I thought I was going to go in and see, okay, it starts with a plane crash, and there's going to be this unraveling of layers of depth as they investigate what caused it and all that. And there's none of that. I mean, before it happens why it happened, or why it didn't happen, I should say. And so the story is not the way. I have issues with movies that promote themselves as something different than what they are because I think the advertiser says, God, we can't sell this. We can't. Good movie or bad movie doesn't matter. How can we sell it? So we'll sell it as something it's not. So I took issue with that. So what I've been telling people is, if you want to see a good movie, you want to see an excellent performance. Flight is not a bad way to spend the weekend, but it probably is not the movie you thought you would go to see if you watched the commercials.
And he was taking the flight in his head.
Yeah. Okay.
But what I will say about Flight is it has something in common with Psycho. And I did ask this question of Zemeckis. I said, how could you have I knew why. Having the crash at the beginning of the movie is like having Janet Leigh killed off at the beginning of the movie. And then you're moving backwards. So I thought that was really daring to have this big climax right at the beginning of the movie. That was just my opinion.
No, I agree. That was, you probably came. I was prepared for a movie where the crash would happen early, and then the real story would be the investigation, the politics with it. And the movie got into that a little bit, but it was really concerned with with
The morality play.
with Denzel Washington's problems and how he was going to cope with them or not cope with them. So.
And having that
Right.
woman have the OD like Janis Joplin, that was kind of what is this parallel track,
Yeah.
But it's thought provoking and it's a good story. Which brings us to the stories tonight. What is on tonight, which is November 23rd?
Is that Two Women tonight?
Yeah, two women.
Two Women, and this is a 1960 movie, Italian movie, directed by Vittorio De Sica, and starring Sophia Loren. And this is kind of a late Italian neo-realism movie. After World War II, the cinematic world was stunned by movies out of Italy which kind of a more neo-realism, the new realism. They weren't melodramatic and all that. They got into some questions of life. And I got to say, when you watch these as a kid, as I did, they were as boring as can be, because it was all what was going on in the character's head or not. That's not quite what happens in Two Women. Two Women is about World War II. It's about displacement. Sophia Loren, though she's only 26, and they wanted her to play the daughter in the movie. She plays the mother, so it's about her and her 12-year-old daughter, which if you do the math, that means the Sophia Loren character had a daughter at a very young age. And they're, first they leave Rome to go to a village to get away from the Nazis, then they go back to Rome after the war, and I will tell your viewers there is a gang rape scene in this movie, which I don't think will shock anybody today, but when this movie came out, this was something. I mean, this is what they warned you about before you went to see the movie. There is a gang. They didn't use the term gang rape then, but there is a rape.
And what year was this?
This was 1960.
Okay. So, same year as Psycho.
Same year as Psycho.
And something equally shocking.
Yep.
Rape and murder is about as shocking as you can get.
Well, watching Janet Leigh stabbed to death in the shower is probably as shocking as watching a gang of Moroccans rape a young mother and the daughter.
Oh.
So anyway, I mean, just be aware. This is what got Sophia Loren an Oscar, and it got her a whole bunch of other things. And people think this was the breakthrough role for her, but it was not. She was well on her way to being a star in Hollywood. This movie was made in Italy. She began in Italy in her teens, working her way up. She had bit parts and then better parts. By the time she made this movie, she had already starred with Cary Grant. I made a list here. Cary Grant, Frank Sinatra, John Wayne, and Alvin Ladd, all in Hollywood movies, and some of them big-budget Hollywood movies. And actually, the Gable one was a movie filmed in Naples. And so she was well on her way, and this was kind of a role she had to fight for, and then she had to fight to get the mother's role because she saw that as the plum. So this was not her breakthrough movie in terms of popularity. This was her breakthrough movie in terms of being a more serious actress. And then she's been a star ever since, and she's still with us, and she's well in her. Let's see, I don't think she's 80 yet. I think she's 78, and but she still looks, for 78, she looks great. Well, she looks great for almost any age. And just so, after that, this elevated her from being an actress to becoming a respected actress, and on her way to being a legend, because she's been a star now for 50 years. I guess she doesn't do much acting now, but she was acting well into her 60s and all that. So, yeah.
And one would think that a Robert Zemeckis or any major film director would want Sophia Loren even to do a minor part in a movie, just because of her star persona.
Yeah, she tends. I mean, and not just because she's beautiful, but when she enters a scene, all eyes tend to go on her. So you have to be careful because she can steal a scene that she has no business stealing. But she was very good in this movie and all that. And you'll see a young Jean-Paul Belmondo, who again is still with us. He's also about 80 now, in his 80s. No, he's not quite 80 yet. And he has a smaller role in this as a partisan who the Nazis eliminate. And then I don't think anybody else in the movie will probably be known to a typical American watcher. They're not known to me, you know. But this is an important movie. It's I think of it as the end of Italian neorealism, but to call it it's not really from that school, but it's obviously derived from that school. And you see Sophia Loren at her height. So that's the movie tonight.
Tonight on November 23rd, 2012, 9 p.m. on WinCam, on Verizon and Comcast. And then next week, which would be the last day in November, November 30th?
I'm told you have the 1943 Phantom of the Opera.
1943 Phantom.
Yeah. Now, one thing, every time there's a technological breakthrough, Universal releases what it considers its 8 standard horror classics on the new medium, whether it be DVD, VHS, Blu-ray. The Blu-rays just came out about Halloween time, and there's 8 movies in there. 3 of them are Boris Karloff movies. Two of them, Bela Lugosi appears in. One is Dracula, he stars, and the other one, Wolfman, he has a supporting role. There's one Lon Chaney movie. There's also 3 Claude Rains movies in there, and he's the star of all 3. He's the Invisible Man, the Wolfman. He doesn't have the title role in the Wolfman, but he has one of the meatiest parts in the movie. And then there's Phantom of the Opera, the 1943 version. And of the 8 classics collections, only one of them is a color film, and that's this movie. And I would say one of the big drawbacks of this movie is the Technicolor. You were talking a few minutes ago about how today's filmmakers sometimes become a bit overly concerned with the special effects or what the technology can do and not focusing on the story. The Technicolor films that Hollywood were producing about this time, by our standards, just have too much color. There's no shadings anymore. Everything's bright. Everything's high contrast. That you got to think. Gee, people must have been colorblind in those days. They had such contrasting colors all over the place. But that was the way they used Technicolor then. Gone with the Wind, which was an unusual Technicolor movie. I think it's the first Technicolor movie to win a Best Picture. I had a lot of that. I had the bright colors, maybe a little too bright, but it didn't get carried away. I think it kept those under control. But some movies of the early 40s, there's not a lot of Technicolor movies that are popular now. They tend to be a bit too splashy in the colors, and that's this one. Having said that, it does take place in an opera where you might think things would be a bit overstated with the costumes and all that. So it's not like you're filming something in Lower Manhattan about the Bowery or whatever, where you wouldn't want these colors, but they are a bit much. Let's see, this movie, what's your favorite Phantom of the Opera, if I may ask, Joe?
Maybe Dr. Phibes with Vincent Price. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not the Phantom, let's see, there's 1925 Phantom of the Opera, the silent version with Lon Chaney, which is the official classic. That doesn't...
I'm not a big fan of them.
What, silence or
Phantom of the Opera movies.
Okay.
But Dr. Phibes is along the lines, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, the original Phantom is born deformed and grows up to become the Phantom. Starting with this movie, the Phantom is not born deformed. He is born normal and becomes mutilated in an accident, and that's when he comes back looking for revenge. Starting with this movie, the tale starts to turn a bit in that sense. It becomes more of a tale of getting even than of with a part of society rather than hating all of humanity for having been made different than they are. Again, Claude Rains is in this movie. He's 53 years old. The romantic lead is Nelson Eddy. He's 42 years old. His competition for the hand of the lady is played by an actor named Edward Barrier. He is 37 years old, and the object of all their attention is a woman named Susanna Forster, who's only 18.
Okay.
They got all these older guys chasing her around. You got to feel sorry for her for the movie. But though when she did marry, she married a few years after this movie. She did marry a guy 20 years older than her. So maybe that's telling us something.
Well, my next obvious question is, did she star in any Alfred Hitchcock movies?
No, in fact, she, you know who Deanna Durbin was?
No.
Okay, she was about the time Shirley Temple got too old to play the kind of role she was playing. Deanna Durbin stepped in and became a new juvenile star, and she was at Universal Studios. And just as horror movies had saved Universal in the 1930s, early 1930s, you can say that Deanna Durbin saved Universal in the late 1930s. And Susanna Foster was kind of like the poor man's Deanna Durbin. And one of the reasons she was around the studio is the studio was grooming her to take over for Deanna Durbin if A, Deanna Durbin left, or B, Deanna Durbin got out of hand. In fact, Deanna Durbin was offered the lead role in this movie, and she turned it down. So without any ceremony, they put Suzanne Foster in to play the role, as if to say to Deanna Durbin, we can get along without you. The irony is both their careers would be over very soon. Deanna Durbin basically outgrew her screen persona, and Susanna Foster never had a chance to grow into hers because she had been under contract to MGM and was not handled well, she thought, and then Paramount, and then Universal. And when she was about 20 years old, she just says, "I don't need this," and she basically turned her back. So after this movie was made in 1943. After 1945, she's 20 years old. I think for the rest of her life, after 1945, she has one film appearance, which I believe is kind of like a guest appearance.
Wow.
And she just turned her back on it.
Well, it's a very touchy industry, the entertainment industry, whether you're in music, books, or film. It's very fickle, and you've got to have a very strong persona.
Well, that's basically what she herself said. She said, "I never had the ambition that you need to really get to the top. That, talent and all that is great, but you got to have the drive." And she said, basically she said she didn't want it enough to succeed in Hollywood, so she just turned her back on it. Let's see, what else can we say about her? Excuse me, Nelson Eddy. Nelson Eddy, as I said, is 42. He's been a great tenor. Excuse me, a baritone. Eddy was a baritone. In Hollywood through the 30s, mainly at MGM. The MGM years are behind him, but he's quite good in this movie as far as singing. The acting, he was always a bit... he didn't underplay a scene, let's say. He was always a bit operatic for that. But the singing scenes he has, he's just amazing to listen to. And if you watch the movie closely, there is a sculpted figure of Susanna Foster, the leading female character in the movie. And Eddie, who was a talented sculptor in his spare time, actually made that. So, he sang and he sculpted. And he acted, and I guess the acting is the third most highly ranked of his talents. One thing about this movie, and it makes me sad when I watch it. This is the early 1940s. Universal had made a lot of horror movies in the early 30s. Then they were basically banned through the late 30s, and then they came back in the early 40s. And their new horror star is Lon Chaney Jr. By 1943, he's played the Wolfman, he's played Frankenstein Monster, he's played the Mummy, he's played Dracula, but the one he would really like to play is his father's old role, Phantom of the Opera, and they wouldn't give it to him. And the other role he would have liked to have played would have been Hunchback of Notre Dame, and he couldn't get that either. So I think it would be a more interesting movie if they had given Chaney a chance at the role. And,
really?
One of the things Claude Rains, I think, had going against him in this kind of... And Claude Rains is a very fine actor, and he's near his peak. I mean, this is the same year he'll make Casablanca, which is, I guess, is his most famous for him role. But he's a top character actor in Hollywood. But he's also 5'3". Monsters, you can argue, should be on the tall side. Peter Lorre gets away with that because he's so goddamn odd.
And sinister.
Yeah, but the Claude Rains is about 5'3". He doesn't have an imposing physical presence, and so they compensate that by making they exaggerate that by making this Phantom before he becomes a monster, kind of a mousy guy in the background who's basically being walked on most of his life. I would have liked to have seen Chaney in the role, trying to do his father's job. Chaney, Rains is 53 for this. He's the oldest man ever to play the Phantom. I believe that. That was true a few years ago. I haven't kept track of the latest Phantoms, but he's the oldest one to have ever played the Phantom. Chaney at age, if he had made this, he would have been age 37. He would have been just fine. He was a bit old to play the Wolfman, but he did a good job. I wish they'd given him a shot at this. He could have done something with it. And then we'd have that historical context of him repeating his father's role. He never got he would have liked to have had a chance to, he had to live with being compared night and day to his father, which did not set well with him. If you ever had an interview with him, Joe, and of course you never will, it's too late, but if you had an interview with him and you started talking about his father, you'd see him clam up in a hurry because he didn't appreciate that.
I believe I have his autograph somewhere.
Ron Kay Jr., God bless you.
Well, I was a big fanatic at 15, 16, so I would write to the fan clubs. And I got a Lon Chaney autograph, and I have a Christopher Lee autograph. But the thing is, did they really sign them? I think they did. It was really kind of hand-scratched. It looked pretty authentic to me.
Yeah. Chaney in his prime was not known for giving a lot of autographs. He would often just turn his back on people or say, no, I don't do that. And sometimes he would take and put I forget what the catchphrase was, lots of luck, Lon Chaney, or something like that. But you would have gotten one from him later in life, and I don't know if he had mellowed, or I don't know if the fan club would have arranged things.
And maybe these guys appreciated that there was a small core audience that was watching the horror movies like we discussed weeks back. And, Famous Monsters of Filmland, it was there in the back, And so you join these clubs and you would have, hey, look, the Mary Wilson fan club has access to Mary Wilson. So, who's to say?
Yeah, well, I mean, you could probably get it verified one way or the other by somebody who knows about these things. But
finding it now, having these huge storage areas, finding the stuff, collecting it, and then finding it is just two different things nowadays too.
Joe, you are so right, and this is a word for all the younger collectors out there. The day will come when you have everything, but you can't find anything.
It's amazing.
My wife is sitting over there laughing as I say this because I don't know where anything is. So. Especially if we've had, my job moves me around every now and then. Once you move, I swear, it's like Brigadoon. It's there for a day, and then it's 100 years before you can see it again.
I thought you were at work. Today's your day off. It's Thanksgiving weekend, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Frank.
No, I'm not at work. No, I get it. We get the double holiday on Friday.
Good for you.
But if we didn't, I would go in because there'd be nobody in there. I'd actually be able to get some work done for a change.
There you go. So tonight is two women. A week from tonight is Phantom of the Opera. Mm-hmm. Anything else we want to talk about?
I don't know. Let's see. So I won't be talking to you next week, right?
Next week I have Sophie on from England.
Okay. Well, I don't want to take rain on her parade.
Well, the thing is, if I can get from Anthony the week after's movie, I'm trying to get them a week in advance now. Mm-hmm. Because some Fridays Anthony's off, so I'd like him to put them up there. So I will be in touch with you, and you will know in advance.
Well, Joe, let me tell you this. I like to know the movie in advance so I can watch it, because some of these movies I haven't seen in so long, I ought to watch them again.
And we appreciate it. Our audience appreciates the work you do, Frank.
But it is one of my fantasies that you call in one day with a movie I've never heard of and had no warning, and I have to wing it all the way. And if you have regular listeners, they can probably tell when I haven't seen the movie too recently, because sometimes I just don't have time to watch it. And I would like to see how I'd handle that. If you have, I can help you fill your hour if you want to talk a bit more. Or we can go now.
No, because I have to edit this now and get it ready for prime time.
All right. Well, you do that because you only got a few hours before it has to play, right?
That's right. Frank Dello Stritto, happy holiday, man.
Same to you. Bye-bye.
Bye. And that's our show for today. It's 5:37 here at WinCam on Friday afternoon, November 23rd. Hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving, and we've got a lot of surprises in store for the next few weeks and beyond. Visual Radio.